All right, we got to let it breathe while we bring the Facebook groups in here. All right, got to wait for a couple green check marks before we get going. There's one. And waiting, and waiting, and waiting. All right. Welcome into another episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am your host today, Erick Trickel, and joining me this morning is Dylan Von Arks, as Nick Kendall is at an airport getting ready to do some flying, so he's not going to be here today. And I won't be here next week for the same reasons. I'll be on an airplane at this time on Monday, so a lot of traveling coming up, and the big reason for that is the meet and greet this weekend against the Giants. Unfortunately, Dylan, you're not going to be there. It was a blast last year, but how are you doing on this fine Wednesday morning?
Doing fantastic. Ready to talk some more Broncos football and hopefully, finding some good keys to beating the Giants and being a little more competitive against an opponent that has a little less talent. Well, maybe not defensively, but in general, a team that the Broncos should play a little better against.
Yeah. Now, I am sick, and I am trying to blast it away before having to travel. And my office is freezing, and all the normal sweatshirts that I wear in my office are dirty or inappropriate, and I can't wear them live on stream. So you guys get my Stitch onesie today. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Giants. Glad you're doing well, and I'm excited for this game. But this game is a bit of a concern now after what happened against the New York Jets, with where some of the issues the Broncos are having. But when I went through and I watched the New York Jets yesterday, there are a lot of exploitable weaknesses against them. And the biggest one is that defense is pretty atrocious. Like, they have some talent up front and they're doing all right in their pass rush, but their secondary isn't holding up to give their pass rush enough time. And they are a team full of miscommunications, a team of just being over aggressive in the run game. And there is a lot of opening, as this is probably, I don't want to say one of the worst run defenses, but is a defense that is probably one of the most prone to mistakes because of the communication errors that they have, linebackers plugging the wrong holes, things like that. So with the Broncos issues, this hopefully they can figure out some stuff with the run game and get it going against the New York Giants.
Absolutely. And, the thing that does scare me the most is, like you mentioned, that front seven's pretty ferocious. And as we know, Bo Nix hasn't been great under pressure. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league in that the past couple of years. So you have to bet on Bo Nix getting the ball out quick and going through his progressions as he's supposed to, because he's kind of struggled with that, especially over the middle of the field. He's kind of avoided for the most part. But you're hoping for guys like Cortland Sutton, Evan Ingram, maybe Troy Franklin, maybe Marvin Mims, someone step up in that receiver core, please, to get open quick. And as you mentioned, the secondary has been pretty bad for the most part for the Giants. So you just got to hope that defensive line doesn't wreck the game.
Yeah, the biggest area of issue for them, obviously, Dexter Lawrence in the middle. He has been doing a good job in the run defense inside. His size and mass and strength has enabled him to plug holes. And he is a part of the reason why when you filter down to it between the tackle runs only, the Jets actually have a top 10 run defense. The issues are rushing outside, and it's not just the edges. Abdul Carter, he's playing great, but not so much against the run. Kayvon Thibodeau, he's struggling against the run. Brian Burns has always had issues against the run, but it's more than that. And one of the biggest issues that they have against the run to the outside, their corners. Their corners do not play tough or physical against the run. And for that, this is a game where I would really like to see Pat Bryant, who's getting more playing time. He actually tied Troy Franklin for the second most snaps against the New York Jets. This is a game where I would really be utilizing him, as he has taken over that blocking receiver role. And I would do everything I can to get him lined up against Cordell Flott, who has to be one of the worst corners against the run that I have watched, not just this season, but in the last few seasons. There is such an advantage there. Of course, you have to hold up on the with your offensive line and tight ends, to get the running backs outside to take advantage of Cordell Flott's terrible run defense. But that is one area where I think the Broncos can. And even though he's been such a disappointment up to this point, I would really try to get RJ Harvey going with those outside runs, those crack tosses, those stretch plays that Sean Payton added, those wide zone stuff. This is one where I would try to get RJ Harvey going. I wouldn't spam it to the point where, it becomes a basically wasting downs if he's not doing successful. But that's where I'd be looking at, because J.K. Dobbins, most of his success has become between the tackles. And you can definitely tell that he just doesn't quite have the burst for those outside runs. So it is Cordell Flott, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant. That's where I would be if I'm Sean Payton and Bo Nix in the Broncos offense. That's where I'd be looking for try to take the most advantage of what is a really bad Giants defense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This run game last week was pretty abysmal. The Jets front held them pretty tough, and that's rough to see. And especially you want to see a guy like RJ Harvey getting more touches, especially as an early pick for the Broncos, second round. So, like you mentioned, J.K. Dobbins, he doesn't have that burst. Obviously, the injuries that he sustained over the years kind of sapped that from him. So you'd like to see Harvey get more touches just in general. We want to see that burst. We want to see that speed. And that's probably the best way to do that is get him on these outside runs, because J.K. Dobbins isn't going to cut it there. But also, you got to get your other running backs involved in this game. I'm not sure what the deal was with McLaughlin last week. I just don't understand the usage there. Not that I think he would have made a huge difference, but I can't even remember how many snaps he had, but it seemed very minimal. 6. Okay. And yeah, you just need to get your other backs involved, but take advantage anywhere you can in the run game, because clearly this offense suffers greatly when you just put it on Bo Nix to sling it around the entire game.
Yeah, and it didn't help, obviously, losing Ben Powers for the Jets game. That didn't help the run game at all. And then it didn't help that Matt Pert supposedly got hurt and placed on injured reserve as a result of injury 3 snaps into the game or so. So he was playing hurt, led to issues, and he bounced back in the second half. It wasn't as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. And when I did my grades for it and breaking it down, it was rather funny because it was a tale of two halves for Matt Pert, but also Quinn Miners. And they were polar opposites. Miners did really well the first half and then absolutely tanked in the second half. Obviously, Pert struggled in that first half, primarily stemming from that one drive. And then he found a little bit more consistency. Still not perfect, but was a little bit better in that second half. And now both of them are gone. They brought up Calvin Throckmorton, who I would expect to be the starting left guard for this game, because Alex Palczewski, again, not a left side guy outside of them going, these little bit weird formations. They did use him on, I believe, 2 snaps off the left tackle as an extra and jumbo package against the Jets, but that just brings his total snaps on the left side of the line in the NFL to 4, all of them this year. So I would expect that, as there have been, Sean Payton's talked on it, and there's been a lot of talk going around. Palczewski's just not comfortable playing the left side of the line. So it looks like Calvin Throckmorton. And the other area that this Giants defense struggles in is in the quick passing game. So, not quick passing game, but passes behind the line of scrimmage. Bo Nix, that's been almost 26% of his passing attempts, which is the fifth highest in the NFL this season. But what's more than that, and he's done well on those, but what's more than that is the Giants have been one of the worst defenses in stopping those behind the line of scrimmage passes. So as much as I hate screen plays, this is a game where I think Sean Payton can dial up the screens and hopefully find success getting the ball out quickly to Troy Franklin, getting the ball out quickly to Marvin Mims, to RJ Harvey, out in space. Let those speedy, quick, agile playmakers go out there and try to make plays against a secondary who, they're not the most agile group. The linebackers are heat-seeking missiles, but they are consistently taking pretty bad angles to the ball. So if you can outpace them, it can be pretty easy to make up some space. The linebackers aren't major threats sideline to sideline. Like, again, this Giants defense is really bad. They have a lot of big names for it, but they're all in the defensive front. And while they're doing well, they can be, I don't want to say easily, but fairly easily, relatively easily countered with the quicker passing game. And it takes the teeth out of their pass rush, which is where their biggest strength of defense is, with Dexter Lawrence, with Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, especially when they get all four of those guys on the field at the same time.
Yeah, and the Broncos need to execute on their game plan and make sure that they do get the ball out to their playmakers, which I'm sure they will. They do love, as you mentioned, the screen passage, the quick game, but they do have to take advantage still, and that's something we haven't seen the Broncos do is execute some of these play calls. And you want to see a guy like Troy Franklin step up. I heard all offseason how this is going to be his breakout year and he's going to be amazing. It's a one step forward, two step back kind of thing with him, especially that fumble last week. I know there's people saying he had some growth and he had a couple good catches, but that fumble really sticks in my mind. And with Marvin Mims, hasn't done much as a return man, and that's special teams is a whole nother issue, but he really hasn't made too many plays on offense as well. We need someone in this receiving core besides Cortland Sutton to step up, because when he gets snuffed out, not a whole lot to go around. I mean, Evan Ingram slowly getting an uptick in his catches and his impact on the game. But like you mentioned, this secondary and these linebackers can be exploited in the quick game, and you're going to have to hammer that home and hope that someone does take that step and say, hey, I'm going to be the guy to break this game wide open.
Yeah, definitely. And silly me, I'm blaming on being sick. I forgot to say hello to people in the chat. We have Dave Glassman coming in, one of the YouTube members. Thank you, Dave. We appreciate that. Conga Hydra, another YouTube member, saying this game versus the Giants could be as ugly as a Jets game. How is that even possible? Travel. Like, I think we all, leading up to the Jets game, even though they traveled to London right after the Philly game, that is still a lot of traveling for it, and it really throws off their week. So normally they did things. Normally they take Monday off, do film on Tuesday, and then the practices Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But for the Jets game, they flew to London, and then Monday is when they did their film stuff. Tuesday they took off, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday they practiced. And that slight difference can have a major impact in the routine of players and throw them off. Quinn Miners actually talked about it, about how the routine being thrown off, and he doesn't like it because he is a man of routine. So all that plays into it. No excuses. They still went out there and played terribly, but it's not overly surprising, especially with the quality of football that you typically get in overseas games. Denver had a lot of missed opportunities, shot themselves in the foot a lot on offense. It's unfortunate. And then when you add in, the travel, and then when you add in the injury to your starting left guard, who's been a key cog in the running game with how much they've been pulling him, not surprised. But that travel, going back to the Giants game and losing their another starting left guard, it could lead to a rough game, especially, again, against this defensive front, who they have the potential to really take over this game. If Quinn Miners isn't playing well, if Mike McGlinchey isn't up to the test, because he really struggled against the Jets as well. Luke Wattenberg was surprisingly the second best blocker for the Broncos, and he didn't exactly have the best game in the world. So that's how you can struggle against the Giants as well. David Duncan coming in, another YouTube member, saying the Broncos need to get the O-line straightened out or it'll be a long day for the offense. Yeah, it's just the issue of they don't have consistency from three of their starters, and now they have their third starter in 3 games at left guard. The only consistent player has been Garrett Bowles, who has been one of the best tackles in the NFL so far this season. He's been top 3, and in my opinion, having watched all of these tackles play, he hasn't been 2 or 3. So he's been really good this season. Still room for improvement. Don't get me wrong. There's always room for improvement. No player's ever perfect. But after 5 games before the injuries took place, the fact that they didn't have consistency with the right side of the line is a little bit concerning for me.
Yeah, and you expect a lot more out of McGlinchey and Quinn Miners, who was one of, if not the best guard in the NFL last year. The fall off is crazy. I'm not really sure what's happening there. Is it him making up for Luke Wattenberg at times, or he's just not clicking as good as he was last year? And that's very upsetting. And like you mentioned, on the third starter at left guard, and it really makes you wonder how different this line would look if a Nick Gargiulo didn't get injured and missing him for the season, whether he would have played center, whether he would have played guard. At least another body there that's been in the system for a couple of years. And there was a lot of hype for Gargiulo in this offseason. So what could have been? And it sucks that this offensive line is not gelling like they were just a season ago. But especially with how much money these guys are getting paid, it's pretty rough. It's a pretty glaring bad spot on this team.
And then with Matt Pert's injury, that also hurts too, because now your backup left tackle is Frank Crum. Like, so you're going down, you're now going to your fifth tackle if Garrett Bowles goes down, knock on wood. Definitely do not want that to happen with him being the mainstay of the offensive line this year. So it is really rough. And then after that, you're looking at free agents. So Matt Pert's injury doesn't just hurt the what's going on with left guard, where he was expected to be the starter there until December. His injury affects the depth all over, because now if he gets hurt, you don't have a lot at guard. You're now being forced to put Alex Forsyth in, or forced to put Alex Palczewski in, with those issues again on the playing guard for Forsyth and playing on the left side of the line for Palczewski. And then you're forced to go to Crum at left tackle. So a lot of issues stemming from that. But we have Roy Osborne coming in saying, good morning, Eric and Dylan. T-minus 3 days for me till I fly into Denver to see you guys and to watch my very first NFL game. Same here. In 72 hours, I will be on a plane headed to Portland to catch a connecting flight to Denver. And I am not looking forward to it, because I have to be up at like 2 o'clock in the morning for it to start my travels. But it is what it is. When you live where I live, it's always early morning flights to get down there at a reasonable hour. DeAndre Weatherspoon says the Giants defense is tough, but not unstoppable. They're tough because that defensive front, other than that, they have a lot of issues. And also says Sean Payton has to keep the game plan simple and not complicated. And David Youngkin hits the nail on the head here. The problem with Sean is he will not simplify the playbook. We've seen that time and time again. There's been a lot of need over the last 2 years to simplify things, especially in the running game, and he just doesn't do it. Mike Thompson coming in saying Pert played injured. They tell me I guess he can have some slack. Yeah, when he got hurt on the first handful of snaps in the game and played through it, hurting a knee of all things, which these are so important for offensive linemen. A lot of your power generates from your lower half, and you're torquing it up through the upper half to generate push and movement. It's tough to play even like decent with a knee injury for offensive linemen. Some can do it just because of their immense amount of talent that they have, but it's not easy for a lot of guys to do. Dexter Lawrence is going to be a problem with the rotation at left guard. Even with Ben Powers, Dexter Lawrence is a problem. He is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. String Guy saying good morning all. And I hear we just signed a couple new players. Yeah, they signed JT Gray for special teams and signed off their own practice squad Calvin Throckmorton, likely to start at left guard. Then they brought in Garrett Nelson. They brought him back, actually. He was with the Broncos in the preseason before he suffered an injury and got cut in the final cutdowns, and signed a former Michigan interior offensive lineman for the practice squad as well. Clayton Heron says, hey guys, smash that like button and share. Of course, always make sure you do that. We have Todd coming in saying, hello, Broncos country. Adam J. Johnson, the only consistency is we throw 10+ screens a game, nothing downfield. Well, it's hard to dial up a lot of stuff downfield when your quarterback is having issues hitting them. And this is kind of what the Sean Payton offense is. He likes to keep things a little bit short and underneath to open up that deep passing game. You just have to have a quarterback who can hit them pretty consistently. And that is an issue that Bo Nix needs to figure out. Not so much against the Jets. I think they only had like 2 deep shots even called against it, but against the Eagles, against the Bengals, against the Chargers, there have been multiple deep shots that have been missed. And then we have, let's see here. Anybody else in the chat? David Lucero, everyone at Solid Payton was just using burner plays for shit so he didn't give away his schemes unnecessarily. No. I do think that he was trying a lot of things that he normally wouldn't do, especially with how he was using certain players, just to seeing if they can feel that kind of do that on occasion to catch teams off guard against the Jets, at least early on in the game. And then in the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, kind of went back to normal. But when I was watching back over this game, it definitely seems like that Sean Payton was calling things a little bit different, partially because of the lack of run game, the injury, as well as the quality of opponent and trying out some different things.
And, sometimes that can be a good thing, but clearly not this week when you get the run game just absolutely being abysmal. You have to kind of try some things. Now, that's not an excuse for Sean Payton. This was a game that was called pretty terribly. And especially that I believe it was a third down run from Adam Prentice, the fullback, saying, "Hey, yeah, we're just kind of giving up, whatever, it's fine." I don't care if it's the Jets. I don't care how they played, even if they were 0-5 coming in. You let bad teams hang around, they can come back to bite you in the ass, and that's almost happened this week and could certainly happen with the Giants if Sean Payton isn't careful and tries to get a little too cute or try things that he hasn't done before, even in just situationally play calling has been a little so this season, to say the least. But this game definitely, or this last week's game was definitely called weird. We'll call it weird.
Yeah, it was the first game of the season where I looked at the play calling, I looked at the play sequencing, and saw it be a consistent issue for this offense. And Sean Payton, he's been on a heater this season. I know a lot of fans have had issues with his play calling. I think it's been pretty dang good up until the Jets game. Obviously, there's some issues. Obviously, there's some weird calls thrown in there. But he has been on one. He's really attacked where defenses are weak. I don't think he did that so much against the Jets, especially with Bo Nix's success against man coverage that the Jets just basically live in. So it was definitely a weird one, to say the least. And hopefully Sean Payton, goes back to normal against the Giants here. But we have the Ronk coming in saying, "Good morning, Erick and Dylan on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos." Good morning to you, Ronk. Glad you can join us. Hopefully one of these years we get you out to the meet and greet and we can put a face to the name and meet you in person. And David Lucier, got to admit, Bo Nix looked better this week. He wasn't the issue, really. Yeah, this is something that Nick and I talked about Monday morning. Bo Nix wasn't the issue with the Broncos offense on Sunday against the Jets. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. There were some issues that fall on him. But for the most part, he looked really good. He made a lot of smart decisions. He made a lot of clean throws. One of his best throws was the early one where he escaped pressure and got the ball out on a really nice throw. Started off hot, fell off, but part of that, again, also something we talked about on Monday. The Broncos came out in tempo and getting him in a rhythm early in that first quarter where he completed like all but 2 passes for almost 100 yards. And then after that, they did almost no hurry up and tempo stuff. And you could definitely tell that Bo Nix does thrive a little bit better when he is working with that tempo, working with the no huddle, and really being able to catch defenses in certain packages and consistently attack those packages because they're moving so fast that they can't substitute.
Yeah, and it's good to see. It's encouraging. His first half was good. And like you mentioned, his best throw was when he escaped pressure and threw it to Troy Franklin. Unfortunately, he fumbled right after, but it was a really good throw. And, some of these guys got to help out. Bo Nix, obviously, like you mentioned, he's had his own problems, whether it's going through his progressions, throwing at the middle of the field, and facing pressure. But last game absolutely was not on him completely. Certain blame falls on the quarterback no matter what, right? But he was dealing in that first half. And the second half, I'm not sure really. It goes back to the play calling and the game plan. I'm not sure what really happened there. But yeah, you can't really put last week's loss on Bo Nix.
Yeah, and David Duncan, I see your super chat, but before we get into this, before we get in trouble, we do have a presenting sponsor for today. It's already a little bit late. Totally forgot about it, unfortunately, but Underdog Fantasy is a presenting sponsor for this morning's show, and football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action and win money. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and so much more.
That's right. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. So if you think you've got a beat on what Bo Nix's stats are going to be this week, download Underdog and win some money.
Now, so many people have so much fun playing Underdog and winning money while watching football. That's a touchdown, you guys. Download the app today and sign up with promo code MHuddle to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code MHuddle. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Now, we have David Youngkin coming in with the $5 super chat saying, Eric and DVA, do you guys think Sean sees Breeze under center instead of Bo? No. I think he sees a lot of similarities between Bo and Breeze, and he's trying to not necessarily force those similarities to show up in the game, but I think he's trying to play into it a little bit and make Bo Nix take those steps to some degree to where he can be even more similar to Drew Brees, because Drew Brees was like the perfect quarterback for what Sean Payton wants to do with his offense, which is why they worked so well. But Drew Brees, I think, was also pretty more talented than Bo Nix is. So I think that that Sean Payton knows that, and he's trying to work around some of the constraints that he has with Bo Nix. But no, I don't think that he sees Breeze under center instead of Bo.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of projection there, and he wants Bo Nix to be similar to Drew Brees, but they're different. I mean, and I know Bo Nix is older, and he was the most like pro ready quarterback coming out of the draft, but the NFL is a different beast, and he still has to learn how to play in the NFL, whether it's up tempo, whether it's not, whether he's got a good offensive line or not, whether he's under pressure. There's so many factors that go into playing quarterback in the NFL, and it's going to be a long time before Bo Nix is anywhere close to Drew Brees. He is a Hall of Fame talent, and there is a reason he has so many records in this league. So it's not a good expectation, and obviously scouts made the connection, analysts made the connection, fans made the connection, so it kind of unfairly stuck with Bo Nix, and that's kind of like, any quarterback that came in directly after Peyton Manning, like the expectations are too high, and I think we need to take a step back from those comparisons.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where you got to let Bo Nix be Bo Nix. And sometimes when you compare players to some of the greats, it can put just unnecessary extra pressure on them, which obviously Bo Nix, he's probably dealing with some of that because he's been hearing a lot of comparisons to Drew Brees since, the 2023 season when he was still playing with Oregon and starting the draft and people were starting to, notice him from the draft and like, oh, this guy's Drew Brees. I remember seeing stuff coming up in October that year, making those comparisons. So it's definitely something that he might be not necessarily straining or pushing himself to be, but it's probably something that is sitting on his mind at least a little bit. We have Falling Sloth coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. Devastated that I'll be missing the game this Sunday to support a local business opening. So y'all please get loud for me this weekend. Definitely. As I will be there. Hopefully I'll be able to find a way into the game. Currently don't have a ticket. It costs a lot to travel. But we'll see. I'll look at ticket prices when I get down there and probably a little bit before the game, see what I can do. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And it's a pretty big game. They're going to be honoring DT. They're going to be honoring the Super Bowl 50 team. So there is a lot going on with Denver with this game, with what all they're doing with all the honoring. So a bad showing from the team probably won't sit well with fans because of how important this game is for the emotional side of it with, honoring DT and honoring the Super Bowl 50 team. Mike Golden says, we will be just fine. I'm honestly not worried. They will figure it out. We have the team to do it. Now, Sean just needs to scheme up a semi-basic game plan and make sure everyone does their 1/11th. Issue is Sean doesn't like to scheme basic things. He likes to stick within his offense. And this has been an issue even going back to his days with New Orleans. So he's going to try to push people to execute his scheme. And at times he does that become to where it's a detriment to the offense. And Ron coming in saying the Broncos defense can't always win us NFL games. The Broncos offense and special teams need to help out the Broncos defense. Yeah, I think that there is a lot of, obviously, Broncos offense terrible against the Jets. They've been really bad for all but like maybe 2 or 3 quarters this game. And that includes the Bengals game, maybe like 4 or 5 quarters counting the Bengals game. But the special teams, minus the punting, has been questionable at best. The coverages have been awful. The return game has been awful. Will Lutz, even though he only has that one miss from the Colts game, his kicks are not going straight down the middle. They're curving a lot. And there was one against the Jets where it looked like he was going to miss it. Unfortunately, it curved back in. So there's something up there. There's a lot of questions with the special teams unit in all phases, except for punting, that needs to be figured out.
Yeah, and the special teams were such a strength last year, and it's so disappointing to see how far they've fallen off. I don't know if that has to do with Darren Rizzi. I mean, he's been one of the better special teams coordinators in the league, and it's just, what was his name? Chris Banjo, who's with the Jets now. I thought he did fairly well for the Broncos, and I wish they kind of would have kept him around, but it is what it is. Sean Payton likes his friends, and he's going to keep him around. And I mean, it's not like, oh, this is just my buddy, I'm going to bring him in. Darren Rizzi, like I just mentioned, has been very proven in this league, so it's hard to say what fell off. Maybe, I don't know, was Traymon Smith the key to this special team playing well? I'm not sure, but we'll see with the JT Gray edition. Hopefully that helps just a little bit with the coverage units and blocking units.
We have David T coming and saying, good morning, everyone. I hope that everyone is having a start of a good day. Hope you are as well. Hope you're feeling better and on the road to recovery. I know that you've been having a lot of health issues over the past while. So I hope everything's good with you, David. Following Slaw says 8 of the Jets' 11 points came from a fumble, a blown special teams play, and a bad decision against our end zone. Just clean up a couple things, and this game wasn't even really close. Yeah, but I mean, if you take out all the bad of the Broncos and that they did that led to those points, obviously it's going to look like a bigger game, but those bad things are part of it. And it's what goes into the overall showing for it. Quinn Minor is getting called for holding because he got bulldozed and decided to grab and pull the defender down with him in the end zone. It's a stupid decision. It's a bad play that happened for them, and it matters. It counts. The fumble, bad play by Franklin to put the ball on the ground. Just a lot of bad decisions, and when you take it out, yeah, it makes the team look better, but it's all part of the game. Now, does that mean that the sky is falling and that everything's terrible with the Broncos? No. It just isn't that. It just points to that fact that this Broncos team can't stop shooting themselves in the foot. And it happened in the Colts game. It's why they lost that. It happened a lot in the Chargers game with some of those missed deep shots. Like, can't stop shooting themselves in the foot. And until that happens, games are going to be a little bit more rough for them to win it. We have Jay Brew coming in saying, go Broncos. Denver Luke saying, morning, boys. Good morning to you, Denver Luke, as well as that Machop there in your picture. Let's see, anything else here? Todd Anderson saying the play calling has been an issue. I think it was an issue against the Jets. I don't think so outside of that game. I think it's been really good and clean. And then Adam J on that topic, do you agree that Peyton needs to hand the plays off to Lombardi? From the way it looks, man in the box should make the calls since he can see the field and get the calls out more efficiently. No, because the issue with getting the play calls in a timely manner is the length of the play calls. Sean Payton put so much information into it that it just takes time to say it and takes time for Bonix to relay it in the huddle. We have also seen Lombardi be a play caller, and it hasn't been great, minus 1 year with Justin Herbert. So I would not be handing him the play calling duties. If I'm handing anybody the play calling duties, it's Davis Webb and seeing what he can do. I'm not a fan of Lombardi as a coach. I'm definitely not a fan of him as a play caller. I think Denver should have parted ways with Lombardi this offseason and just promoted Davis Webb to offensive coordinator. But no, I'm not handing over play calling duties. I'm not calling for Sean Payton to hand over play calling duties. Now, if we get it being play calling being a consistent issue, again, it was only an issue against the Jets. The first 5 games, it wasn't a problem. It was a lot of execution issues. Now, if it becomes a consistent issue, then you can start having that conversation. But until then, Sean Payton, he's been great, especially in the red zone. Man, his play calls and play designs that he's come up in the red zone have been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and it just comes down to player execution. I know Sean Payton, this game doesn't help, obviously, the noise, right? But for the most part this season, Sean Payton has been calling good games. It's a matter of, is your quarterback getting the ball where it needs to go? There's been guys streaking open, and Bonix just isn't seeing them. He's going for the check down or what have you, and maybe that does lean into Sean calling a few more screens and short passes. Kind of changes how he calls a game. Now, I don't want to put everything on Bo Nix, obviously, because there's a lot of failures on this offense, including the offensive line, lack of playmakers. To be honest, I mean, we talk about this wide receiver core has so much potential. That doesn't mean anything if they're not following through on that, and they're not just following through on that. Like Troy Franklin, what's he done so far? He's had one good drive in one game, and some catches here and there, obviously. Mims is largely a special teams guy, and even there, like we've mentioned, special teams has suffered, and that's a bummer. That's a second round pick that you're using as an all pro kick returner, which is nice, but not really what you don't only want that out of a second round pick. We need to see more Pat Bryant, point blank period. That dude was open on a handful of first downs this past week, and just they didn't go his way. And I mean, with just how abysmal Franklin and Mims have been on offense, you need to give Pat Bryant more opportunities. Being a rookie, be damned. I don't care about that.
Yeah. Now, getting back to this matchup against the Giants here, go real quick before we switch over to talking about the Broncos defense against their offense. Going back, just touching one thing on the defense of the Giants. They love to stay with light boxes. They're in light boxes about 50% of the time, which is, I believe, like the 5th highest rate in the NFL. Ahead of them is the Bengals and the Eagles, 2 games where the Broncos had some success running the ball. And the Broncos against light boxes, they have been one of the best rushing offenses against light boxes. Specifically, they have the 2nd most yards per game. They have the 8th most yards per play. They have one of the highest EPAs per rush. They have one of the highest 10 plus yard runs in there, sitting at 4th. So they're top 10 in all these categories. Giants love to live in light boxes. Let's see some jumbo. Let's take advantage of that. That's the run game. Sean Payton's had it on there. Run the ball against the Giants. And if it stops working, stick with it for a little bit. Sean Payton is very quick to give up on the run game when it's not working. You got to stick with it a little bit. Obviously, you got to find that balance to where you're not wasting downs, but Sean Payton is, again, very quick to get rid of it. Now, flipping over to the other side of things, obviously, when you're facing a rookie quarterback, what's the key thing? Pressure. But the Broncos got to get pressure on him without blitzing. Jackson Dart, since he's become a starter, has been the 3rd best quarterback in almost every single advanced metric against blitzes. He's just quick to get the ball out. He's able to see it. So what have the Broncos been doing? Simulated pressures. They've been lining those linebackers in the A gap. They've been mugging the A gaps and showing that 5 or 6 guys are coming. They're 3 down linemen, they're edge rushers, the linebackers, even sometimes Hufanga coming downhill. Keep doing that. And then throw different looks at it to where, maybe, Benito drops into coverage, Singleton comes. Sternad and Singleton come with Cooper and Benito. Mix it up. Create that confusion for Jackson Dart. And the reason why this is important, again, not only is just pressuring rookie quarterbacks a good thing, Jackson Dart, when he has been kept clean, when he hasn't faced pressure, he's completing 75% of his passes for 349 yards, no interceptions, and 3 touchdowns. He's completing 48% of his attempts for 159 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions when facing pressure. But he's doing a good job, and the offensive line's doing a decent enough job of limiting the amount of pressure he deals with. He's only being pressured on 31.5% of his dropbacks so far this season, which is the 12th lowest in the NFL. So the Broncos, fortunately, what's been that one thing that they've been able to do? Get pressure on quarterbacks, and they've been able to do it without blitzing at a super high rate. They're only blitzing at 33.8% of it, which is the 4th highest. Don't get me wrong, but it's because they're just bringing that one extra guy. They're showing a lot of confusion, and they bring that one extra guy every now and then, just when the quarterbacks start to feel a little bit comfortable. And that's the way to keep doing it. I think against the Giants, about 30% is about a fair amount, but they've been able to do that, and they lead the league with 46.1 quarterback pressure percentage, which is 3 points higher than the next highest team. They can get pressure without having to blitz, and that needs to be the big focus of it, because without Malik Neighbors, this receiving unit for the Giants is awful. Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan and Jahdae Barron, Brandon Jones, they all should be able to step up against the receiving core of them and of the Giants, as well as Theo Johnson. So show blitz, don't actually blitz too often, and just focus on winning those one-on-ones, get the pressures, which is something that you can do and rely on with the way Nick Benito's been playing.
Yes, and you absolutely have to confuse a young quarterback. And I know he had this breakout game on Thursday and played super well and whatnot, but he was running like a fullback a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
not to say you should make an illegal hit on him, but when you get the chances to hit him as a runner, you better hit him, because he's going to go down. He's trying to play like he's Josh Allen in the run game, and he's not that quite yet. Yeah, well, I don't think he ever will be. Josh Allen's a freak, but like you mentioned, yeah, you have to confuse him, give him different looks, and you don't have to blitz. So you have Nick Benito, you have Jonathan Cooper, who's probably the best pass rushing duo in the NFL right now, and you have the tools to not have to blitz. Like you mentioned, that wide receiver core for the Giants is god awful without Malik Neighbors, and it kind of leans into this comment about Adam J. Johnson comes and said, how is it that we put PS2 in the fire right after we drafted him, and then they weren't doing anything with Barron? Seems like not getting the draft worth unless it's third down. What's your take? My take is that PS2 only got thrown in due to an injury to, I believe it was Ronald Darby.
Yeah.
So who knows how much he would have actually seen the field that season. The other thing with Barron, they seem to want to play him in the slot. He can play outside as well, but Jaquan McMillan has been playing very well this year. Obviously, he played pretty good last year, had some, problems with yards after the catch last year, but this year he's playing very well. There's just not necessarily a spot for him right now unless, they put him on a tight end on certain downs, like you mentioned, third down or what have you, but there's just not the necessity to have him out there right now. But as we've seen before, we've had injuries to this cornerback room, and it will be good to have Barron step in there when needed. So obviously it's first round pick. Everyone wants to see him play 100% of the defensive snaps, but with just how good this Broncos secondary is right now, it's not really needed.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with it. PS2, he was the fourth corner entering the season. He was behind Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby, and Brian Callahan. He wasn't thrown to the fire. He ended up having to be thrown to the fire, so to speak, in that first game because Ronald Darby got hurt against the Giants and went to Patrick Surtain. Denver has a deep corner room. Riley Moss has been playing a lot better than what a lot of fans think. Patrick Surtain has been playing well as well. Jaquan McMillan has been the best corner for the Broncos so far this season, which nobody was expecting. Denver drafted Jahdae Barron with the expectation of beating out Jaquan McMillan. No one saw Jaquan McMillan taking such a massive step forward with his play. People talk about how Troy Franklin bulked up a little bit. Jaquan McMillan also changed his build a little bit. He kind of shed some bad weight, not that he had a whole lot of it on there, and he cleaned up things a little bit. And he really focused on his change of direction, which was a big issue last year that teams were able to take advantage on it. They would throw a lot of fakes his way, get him caught going one way, and then break out to the other. And they're able to take advantage of that. And McMillan put in the work to improve on that. So he dramatically improved his game. So it's not the same situation here, even though it looked like it was going to be. Patrick Surtain, again, he was the fourth corner entering that season, stuck behind the other guys, and he ended up becoming the starter due to an injury. And that is where Jahdae Barron is right now, unless some team comes in and blows Denver away with an offer for Jaquan McMillan. Not saying I would trade him, but unless that happens, Jahdae Barron, he's going to be used as kind of like a dime player, using his versatility a little bit, or a lot of it, in certain packages, certain looks, certain things. He's been playing a little bit every single game. And just in the certain look, and just keep acclimating him to it until the door is open for him to be that starter with either injury or somebody's play completely falling off. And that's just kind of where it's at right now. And Terrence coming in on the same topic. What do they put Moss in the slot and Barron on the outside? I'd love to see it. Then you're taking your best corner so far this season off the field in McMillan. McMillan's a starting slot corner, and he's been playing absolutely phenomenal football up to this point. So it is not just not a thing that you do. And Riley Moss has been playing really good football. He's still one of the most targeted corners, and he's still in the bottom 10 in catch rate allowed. He's targeted a lot and isn't allowing a lot of catches. So he's doing well. Obviously, there's some issues. Obviously, penalties are an issue. It is just he's been playing a little bit better. And on that note, too, with Patrick Chan and Riley Moss, they have 4 or more passes defended in man coverage. They are only one of 3 duos in the NFL right now to have that 4 or more passes defended in man coverage. And that, guess what? Man coverage, that's where Jackson Dart struggles the most. So this is up to it, as well as not having, some tough matchups for them. Obviously, Devontae Smith wasn't the right matchup for it. I didn't like that Vance Joseph was putting Moss on Smith all that often. I think it would have been better to go with bracket coverage with McMillan and Jones, but that's beside the point. Not T. Higgins. Even Alec Pierce has been a pretty good receiver this season for the Colts over the last couple seasons. So Moss has had some difficult things, and his lack of length, 8th percentile in arm length, has been an issue. But it all comes down to putting him in the slot. You're taking McMillan off the field, who's been the best corner for the Broncos so far. And then we have some comments here about the Dre Greenlaw. I wonder if we get Greenlaw back this week. Talking about it. I don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos open his practice window. But from what I've gathered, it seems like they're eyeballing either the Cowboys game or the Texans game for Greenlaw to come back. So not this week, but the week after, or the week after that. That seems to be when they're eyeballing Greenlaw to make it back and make his debut for the Broncos, barring yet another setback. So come to find out, Greenlaw has suffered 4 setbacks in his recovery since when he heard it in the offseason. 4 of them. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that because there's some other stuff that I know that I was asked not to talk about. But yeah, Cowboys game or the following week against, I believe, the Texans. With how the schedule is, I can't remember exactly for sure how that would be. Now, one question here that I saw that I want to grab from Stella. What's the rumor on trade targets for the Broncos? Haven't heard a whole lot of trade rumors for the Broncos, but I think there's some guys out there that we could possibly be looking at a few positions. And I think this week would be very telling as to what direction the Broncos go when it comes to exploring the trade market.
Yeah, there's several ways they could go. Obviously there's not been necessarily like substantial rumors or backed by anything. It's more speculation. Like the David Njoku's of the world, if you want to go tight end, or Mark Andrews, center Eric McCoy. Obviously, there's a Saints connection. Demario Davis at linebacker has been brought up quite a bit as well. I would take anything at linebacker because, like you were just talking about Greenlaw, I was very cautiously optimistic with that signing, and there's a reason I gave. I don't remember if it was a D or an F to the linebacker core coming this season, because even with Greenlaw, when's he going to be on the field? And this was my thought process even before we knew how long he would be out up to this point. And with how bad Singleton's been, the linebacker core has been pretty bad. So I'd look for someone there if possible. I know, who did I just see? Logan Wilson got benched by the Bengals. Now, do you want to trade for a guy that's been benched? Who knows? But anything to this linebacker core, or any addition rather, would be something I'd look into.
Yeah, issue is obviously you have to factor in contracts. Denver's only sitting with about, I think, like 5.7, give or take, million in salary cap space, which makes a lot of these starters that you hear about a little bit tough to go get. But one guy who, it's a tough situation, and I'll get into it, Joel Bitonio. He's on the last year of his deal, contract voids, but he would leave the Browns with a lot of dead money. It is, at this point, it is almost 12 million in dead cap this year, with almost 20 million in dead cap next year. And the Browns are already sitting over the cap next year by about 14 million. They can currently roll over about 22 million, which brings them into the positive by about 7. So if the Browns are willing to trade Bitonio, they're going to want somebody to eat some of that dead money this year. And Denver, obviously, they can't eat a whole lot of it. You want to leave yourself with some wiggle room for injuries, for signings and stuff like that. But there's only one move really that can free up additional cap space for the Broncos right now, and that is trading Alex Singleton. Denver, not saying this is an idea or anything, but I was looking into it. Denver could trade Alex Singleton for Joel Bitonio. Not saying either team would do this, not saying either team wants to do this or anything like that. Just highlighting the salary cap issues that Denver's dealing with when trading for somebody. Denver could trade for Joel Bitonio just with Alex Singleton, maybe throw in a draft pick if the Browns really want it, whatever, and eat all of the dead money this year for Joel Bitonio and still have about $4 million in salary cap space. That's enough to wiggle your way through. So it's doable. But Denver is in a situation where they would have to basically move Alex Singleton to bring in somebody, unless they're getting a guy on a rookie contract, not a big contract, or like a veteran minimum deal, and inserting him. And you also got to factor in, is the other team selling? I don't think the Cleveland Browns are selling. I think they still view themselves as pretty darn close to everything with how they've been in games and with the way their defense is and with the way their run game's been going. So you look at other teams, the Titans, will they sell? Won't happen, but I would absolutely love Peter Skoronski. He's on a rookie contract. That would be a guy I would call on, but I don't think he's being sold, because when you get talented rookie contract players, even teams who are selling typically want to keep them because they're part of their core going forward that they're going to use to build around. So it's always tough. I don't think there's a lot of options for the Broncos that are affordable, and I'll be very curious to do it. Linebacker, getting themselves a versatile tight end, somebody who can improve their blocking over Adam Trautman, because Nate Atkins, he's the best blocking tight end and he's been doing really well, but he's more of that fullback tight end hybrid and been used as such. Upgrading over Adam Trautman, upgrading over Alex Singleton or Justin Strnad, however way you want to do it, when Dre Greenlaw comes back and is back to normal, or left guard. But Mike Kliss recently talked about this, and he mentioned Denver looking at wide receivers. Something that you've touched on a little bit today, Dylan. There hasn't been a guy who's really stepped up as that number 2 consistently. It's been the Cortland Sutton and guys show for Denver, so it makes sense for them to be looking a little bit at other wide receivers.
Yeah, so someone's got to step up, and maybe they're not even on the team yet. It could be in a trade, not saying it would happen, but like you mentioned, Kliss kind of floated that little nugget out there, and I'm not entirely sure who they would go after. Obviously, dream scenarios would be like Garrett Wilson and stuff, but like you mentioned, cap is pretty strapped. Kind of hard to see them even moving off him anyway. But, there's a handful of guys out there the Broncos could go after, and I think I welcome any addition to this wide receiver core because, like we mentioned, Troy Franklin's not cutting it. Mims isn't cutting it. No one's really cutting it outside of them. And like I've been pounding the table. Get Pat Bryant more touches. I don't care if he's a rookie. The dude is getting open. You drafted him in the 3rd round for a reason. Let's scheme up some touches for this guy.
Yeah. Now there are a couple receivers out there. Both of them have been linked with Denver. Tyler Lockett, he signed a 1-year deal with the Titans. He was a name that the Broncos reportedly had some interest in when he was let go by the Seahawks. He is a doable trade with the salary cap constraints that they have. 1-year deal, 33. Obviously, hasn't been playing as you would expect, or as you'd want, really. And just hasn't been doing a whole lot for the Titans there. He only has like 10 catches on the season. And then the other one, big name that's been thrown about a lot with the Broncos over the last couple of years, Alan Lazard of the Jets. He didn't play against the Broncos for personal reasons. And there's been a lot of rumors that part of those personal reasons is he went to ownership and said, get me the hell out of here. That he is sick and tired of his time with the Jets and he wants out. And Denver's been linked with that. Not saying Denver's interested in either of them, just 2 names that could possibly be out there. But with that, is there any last things before we get out of here as we approach the hour mark?
Yeah, well, just another thing to factor into, and maybe an excuse for later on, but the Giants did play a Thursday game, so they do get a couple extra days to suss out what the Broncos are look like and what they want to do against them. So that's certainly going to be in the back of my mind as I watch the game, and as something that I'm going to see as probably an excuse for this week. Obviously, it does help the Giants. It's not saying it doesn't, but there's definitely a little bit of advantage for the Giants there. But it is on them to capitalize on those extra couple days to study the Broncos.
Yeah, it is a bit rough, and I mean, the Giants, they have a lot of fight in them. They are very physical, and Broncos need to match that physicality. Stella coming in asking if this is the game is the meet and greet. It definitely is. The information is up on Twitter right now. I can actually pull it up if I get a second for it. I know it is from 11 to 2 on Sunday. Let me go up. I have it. All right. So yeah, Sunday, October 19th from 11 to 2 p.m. We will be in Lot D of at Empower Field at Mile High Stadium. Look for the big blue MHH tent. I believe almost everybody's going to be there. Dylan's not, because Dylan's lame, but Lance will be there. Carl will be there. Nick will be there. I'll be there. Ron's going to be there. Thomas is going to be there. Chad and I believe Zach are going to be there. So looking forward to it. Hope a lot of you guys can make it, especially if you live in the area. Come say hello. And again, one thing I ask, let us know your username here on Twitter, or on in person, I guess, on here, or if you're coming in through Twitter, and we mostly recognize you through Twitter. Because I'll never forget the first year we did the meet and greet. Somebody came up and introduced themselves with their real name. And I'm just like, okay, like, I don't know who you are, because this isn't a name I recognize from it. And caught me off guard, led to a little bit of an awkward moment. But we appreciate it. So if you just have a different name, obviously, if you don't use your real name here on YouTube or Twitter or wherever it is that we would know you from, just give that so we can put a name, put the name that we know and the picture that we know to a face as well. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll be starting my travel in under 72 hours now. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a good time. And again, I hope we get to see a lot of you guys there. But before we get out of here, we have some matters of business first. One thing, you guys can go to youtube.com/@MileHighHuddle and become a member, where you guys get access to all sorts of exclusive content like Kelberman's Korner and Broncos Book Club, as well as some other stuff that are in the works that are likely going to be coming after the season. If you guys are able to do so, obviously super chats on YouTube and stars on Facebook help support the channel and go directly to us. And it's one way that we can help keep the lights on, which I don't know if it's been noticeable, but I need to get a new light because my light has been flickering all throughout the show and it's driving me nuts. If you guys are unable to do so financially, which we understand, times are tough, and especially as we get closer to the holidays, you guys can just do a couple things that take a matter of seconds, like subscribe, like, and share. Those are ways that help us with the algorithms, especially on YouTube and Facebook, that are ever changing and ever being headaches for us. You can also go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag. Every single month you can get hats like this one, or some other stuff here. And also, you can go to mhhmerch.com to also, again, get hats like this. Get your gear on, not swag. Again, I hate saying swag. Shirts, hats, mugs, all sorts of stuff over there at mhhmerch.com. And again, as the holidays approach, if you have family who are also fans of Mile High Huddle, that's a good place to get some gifts for them. You can also follow us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod and facebook.com/MileHighHuddle, where you guys can get access to all of our written content as well as be part of the wonderful Facebook community that we have built up over the years. You guys can also follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Mile High Huddle, at MHH Pod, at BFB Pod. I can't remember the title. I still haven't committed it to memory yet. And you guys can get access to all of our written content through there on the Twitter or Xverse or whatever it is you want to call it. This is one of the many Mile High Huddle podcast shows that we come to you every single night of the week and twice in the morning. We thank you guys for joining us. But Dylan, before we get out of here, any last words?
Yeah, just looked it up. It is BFB_pod for those who are interested. But no, just hoping for a more consistent game from the Broncos offensively. I'm not too concerned about the defense, but just ready for football. Sad I can't make the meet and greet, and thus barring a last-second plane trip, just hey, you know what? Maybe I'll just do it. Who knows? But yeah, excited to talk with you guys on Saturday. If I do not go, I'll probably be doing a solo stream for Orange and Blue View Saturday. So I will see you guys then.
Thank you guys for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday morning. We're on the downward slope of it. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope we see a lot of you guys on Sunday at the meet and greet. I'm looking forward to it. And those of you who are traveling, if I don't see you Friday night, I hope you guys have safe travels. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe. And as our good friend Nick always says, choose kindness and compassion. And of course, go Broncos.